warfare, whether it's psychological or occult, we all feel bombarded by different forces these days, and maybe we are literally under attack by certain people or forces. We're going to talk about that today. I'm Angel Miller, author of The Three Stages of Initiatic Spirituality and Path of the Warrior Mystic, and I'm speaking with Lua Valentia, the founder of Specula and an author of books on the Chaos Magic.
Hello, hello! Spiritual warfare. The first thing I would say is choose your battles wisely. Sometimes we're eager to defend our friends. We're eager to show how much we love and care about them. And we start some battles that are not our own to fight. And we see ourselves into the spiral of craziness. And it is really dangerous because sometimes the people who were originally battling between themselves, they can make peace. And you are now, what is going on? What is happening? So I would say choose it very wisely and observe before you start a battle.
Yeah, so you raise a good point because, of course, the First World War broke out really and became a world war because all of these different countries had allegiances and had promised each other that they would defend each other if attacked. So when one country got into a war, they all got into a war, and it exploded into something that the world had never seen before. But even going back to ancient Northern European society, among the Germanic tribes, it was typical for this culture of honor, where if someone killed your friend or your family member, you were duty bound, according to the rules of society, to go and kill the murderer. And of course, once the murderer was killed, then that family or his friends was then duty bound to come and take revenge on you and to kill you. And so it created these spirals of cycles of violence that were difficult to get out of. And of course, we hear about these in myths, and then they sort of last, forever, and ultimately are obviously bad for the people involved, but are also bad for society and destabilize society, of course.
Absolutely. But I see nowadays that this can create also curses within bloodlines. So there are entire families who hate each other, who are in constant battles with each other. We can talk about bloodline curses later. But now, how to recognize that you've been cursed or that you are in a spiritual battle with someone? First, unexplained odors. I got a client once that no matter what she did, no matter how many showers, baths she had, she smelled she smelled pretty bad, and she even tried to go to the doctors. She even tried to, I don't know, find a reason why. But the reason was spiritual. Her spiritual body, as we say, her sa body, was being eaten alive by spiritual entities. So the smell of death or death-like odors, they can signalize that something very negative, very heavy could be happening. If in your house or when you enter somewhere and this unexplained odor appears, this is a very heavy sign of a spiritual attack. Another thing is, even science can explain this. If you don't like the way someone smells, usually you find them disgusting. You don't want to be near them. You don't want to have them as a partner. And this is especially true with women. Some women take the pill and this reduce their capacity for smells. So Once they get out of the pill, they realize they're not attracted to their partners because they barely could be near them. The only reason why is because the pill was numbing their senses. Another sign of attack is the sudden death of pets and plants. So it's said within witchcraft that pets, they are the first in line when it comes to spiritual attack, especially cats. They can sense the spiritual realm much more than we do. The legend says, at least in Brazil, that the reason why witches have so many cats is because they will defend their household in a 5D or in a spiritual level. So lots of plants dying suddenly, pets dying suddenly, people getting ill with no explanation could be a spiritual attack. The same with unusual loss of damage of several of your objects. So items, when they get broken, stolen, or they disappear mysteriously without cause, especially if you're not living in a very dangerous area, could be a sign of attack. Another sign of attack is illness that cannot be explained and they are persistent. So they're always returning and you don't know why. This could be a spiritual attack.
Yes, so certainly, from my experience in my younger years, magic, whatever or however we might define that, definitely works best in a sort of air of chaos and even paranoia for sure. And these things do happen. And even maybe on a more mundane level, I noticed that friends or not even friends, people who are somehow connected, not even as friend groups, but maybe you come into contact with people because you have similar interests, whatever it may be, and then all of you seem to be going through some dark period at the same time, even though it's not from the same source. So th these things also seem to come in waves, which might be connected to society or where society is heading, or just general negativity that's sort of being aimed at people that are having some kind of effect in this sort of churning world that we live in.
When they cannot attack you directly, they will attack those closest to you. So this is
Yes.
also very important to say because occultists, they must be very careful with whom they're close with, their partners, their spouses, because they must protect them, but of course, people around them must allow the protection to happen, because the spiritual warfare is heavy. That's why you see many occultists who prefer to be eremitas. They prefer solitude because they know the price that their friends, families go through with these attacks.
Mhm. Yeah, well, not just attacking other people, of course, but in society, in our society, well, in every society and culture that's existed, another thing that people attack is symbols, of course, whether it's a flag or a deity or the women in your society, they usually another primary victim of attack as well. So, to kind of demoralize and to destroy and drag down the fighting spirit that can, hold off the attack. And yeah, to sort of demoralize those who would be capable of defending their society or themselves.
Symbolic war, mimic war, these are all very important to study and even with the semiotic studies, because as you said, symbols are what govern and organize society, even in a collective subconscious level. So as you said, some people, they try to steal a symbol from another person. They try to reprogram the symbol as to say, to use its weight for their own agenda. Another way of knowing if you're being attacked is by disturbing dreams and visions. So, if you have discernment, if you have a strong sense of intuition, you will perceive that something is wrong. You will have an increase of nightmares. And we were talking about symbols. So these symbols will flood your subconscious, and you must read them very carefully. And sometimes within spiritual warfare, if the person doing the attack are a dream walker or an honoroid child or just a very advanced occultist, they can send you certain visions, certain nightmares, and they can reprogram your unconscious if you don't know how to filter these subliminal messages. So I've seen many people who were being attacked and they felt attacked, but they still were searching for this coded message. So they were still stalking their enemies' fan page. They were still trying to understand what is going on. They and sometimes they will take I don't know, something they posted as a shade for them, and they try to decode everything that is posted. And this can become nightmares, and this person can feed this paranoia that everything is against them. That's why if you have someone that you don't like or that you know they don't like you, the best case scenario is not to feed this paranoia and not to read the subliminal messages or try your best not to engage with their content directly. There are some people who they feed on posting negative commentaries about others. They feed on posting lies about others. So instead of trying to see if they are posting about you, talking about you, or trying to throw shade at you, do your best not to engage, feed, or read any type of this content.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even when you look at, say, shamans in villages, there is an element of trickery and psychology that's used. So maybe they have a bone that they perform some ritual, and then it seems to the crowd that they're pulling the bone out of the body, but or a crystal out of the body or something, and they say, oh, this is the demon of the disease that's been infecting the sick person, and I've just taken it out and removed it, and then everybody thinks it's this miraculous cure, even of course the sick person. And this psychological trickery also has an effect, and we definitely shouldn't negate this the psychology and the trickery in even in magic traditionally. Obviously, leaving a voodoo doll on someone's step will be enough to terrorize many people into dying, and at least in certain societies or whatever the equivalent might be. So yeah, so psychology is a big part of it for sure. You mentioned not looking at your enemies' social media and seeing what they're saying about you. From my experience, when people attack you, it's usually out of total ignorance. And from all of the criticisms I've had online, I can honestly say that every single one of them has deliberately misinterpreted what I have had said in, let's say, in an article, so that they could attack me and say I'm something I'm not. And it's, and these people are intelligent enough to know what you're saying, but they want to deliberately misinterpret it so that they can tut and criticize and say, look how much more intelligent they are, because they can't really actually criticize what you're actually saying. And these people are losers, obviously, and most people that are out there attacking other people are, well, in fact, everyone who's out there attacking other people are basically losers. People who are winners in life don't really have time to be out there trash talking other people. And so you should recognize the weakness in your enemy who's attacking you, that these are not typically very strong people. Certainly in the way they feel in themselves, they don't feel good about themselves. That's why they're attacking you or attacking other people or attacking celebrities that they've never met. So yeah, we need to disengage by recognizing these people are actually fundamentally weak and they're lashing out because they are weak people. Strong people do not act like this.
Strong people are building empires and legacies. But of course, if someone is trying, to tear me apart, I'm going to counterattack and use it as a propaganda of
Oh,
my
sure.
own. But we can talk
Yeah,
about this in a minute.
of course. I mean, it's one thing. I'm not talking about people who are, responding to another person's attack. I'm talking about the people who are out there who, preemptively are attacking whoever they can, just, usually to get some attention and appear wiser or more intelligent or more spiritual or more moral than they really are. So, yeah.
Some of them are definitely social climbers, and they see you as an opportunity to climb using your name, using your uh, social recognition. So they try to build themselves by tearing other people down, definitely.
Yeah, well, I think, the one thing that we forget is that, not everybody has the same brain chemicals as us. And we always assume that people are basically the same as us, and that, if someone is out there attacking other people, we're perplexed, and sometimes we even say things like, "What's wrong with that guy?" But what we mean by that is, well, that guy's basically normal, so why would he do it? But why would you assume he or she is basically normal when they're acting in an abnormal way? You should probably assume that they're mentally abnormal. That makes more sense. And there are psychopaths in society. There are psychopaths online, and these people are going to behave like that. And they will attack people to social climb. Of course, I mean, occasionally we come across people who come in contact will contact you. I've had this. Someone will contact you and they say, oh, you're connected to such and such. Can you put me in touch with them? And they're super nice and very friendly, and you think, oh, what a great person. And then once they get what they want, they never speak to you again. If you email them, they'll never respond because they're just these psychopaths who are social climbing and you've served your purpose. But of course, on the flip side, of the psychopaths who will be nice to you until they get what they want, and then you're basically dead to them. The flip side is you get these psychopaths who are out there attacking you just so that they can seem moral, so that they can seem good. Obviously, to any reasonable person, this is not the behavior of a moral person, but a lot of people are sucked into the drama, sucked into the black and white thinking and the group think. So it's very seductive for a lot of not very thinking people.
If they have a common enemy, they think the attack is totally justified. It doesn't matter how unhinged they are, if they all saying the same thing, they can
Yeah.
move equally.
Well, the modern world doesn't have a lot of meaning for people's lives. And if by attacking someone else and saying, "Well, I'm attacking this person because they're a dreadful, terrible monster, and we need to show how moral we are against this terrible person," well, then you give a lot of people who don't have meaning in their lives, you give their life meaning, even if it's just attacking someone, and they don't want to look into the person they're attacking because they might, well, they're probably going to be wrong. And so, so it's seductive in this way that, you can take a lot of people who are unhappy with their lives and their lives don't have meaning. And suddenly now they're, warriors in a crusade for moral good or whatever it may be. So, and you get this on all sorts of levels. Obviously, you get it against public people, but you get it against, just Joe Schmo on social media who posted the wrong thing or whatever it may be. So,
Talking about social media, another sign of attack is when your electronics are not functioning properly. And this could be spiritual. It could have been that a techno mage is attacking you. I've been parts of many spiritual warfares, egregore warfares, and some people, they really try to undermine you and really try to do some so they're trying to hack into your accounts to read whatever it is that you've been talking or posting or whatever. And be very careful, because some people, they send you an image or they send you a link, and once you click in that, the amount of data hidden in one link, the amount of data hidden in one photo is a lot. So basically, the easiest way to attack someone nowadays is definitely using techno magic, and you can do that by hacking into their accounts in various ways, or even just by sending certain energies, curses directly to their social media pages. Another way of doing this would be techno voodoo, for instance. So if you ever played The Sims, you can definitely build a character of these people and, control their character through The Sims. So this happens a lot, and that's why you have to be very careful, and you should protect your devices. Every device should have a VPN account. Every device should have an antivirus. You should cleanse your device often, and never click a link from a random person that's sent to you to your social media, because they could dox you. Another sign that you have been attacked is the feeling that you are being watched. And I did a video about monitoring spirits, and during warfare, this happens a lot, because people will be watching your social media, every post you make. They will be decoding whatever it is that you are trying to say. So it is important, if you want to play the game, to hide hidden messages and inputs, so they can decode. And with artificial intelligence nowadays, you can even hide certain commands, because there are people who build programs to analyze your profile, to decode your profile entirely, so they can manipulate you better. As a matter of fact, that's exactly how social media is built nowadays. So they can collect your data to manipulate you better in order for you to buy more certain things. And I've seen people on LinkedIn, because the curriculums nowadays are being read by artificial intelligence. I've seen people adding inputs, adding prompts. So the artificial intelligence could come back with recipes, for instance, a cake recipe. So they would know exactly which employee is actually an artificial intelligence.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think in regard to this decoding your profile or your writing, I would also say that there's in sort of psychological warfare online and maybe offline, there's a stronger element of miscoding, if we can uh, say that, of miscoding your words or miscoding your appearance or your symbols or whatever it may be, and framing them in the worst light. There is a reason why, in courts of law there are two sides, right? And you have the same evidence, and one lawyer says it means he's innocent, and the other lawyer says it means he's guilty, even though it's the same evidence. So everything can be interpreted in at least two different ways, if not multiple different ways. And so you might put something out entirely innocently, and then somebody says, "Oh, this is just the worst," and this means, this signifies such and such, something you had never thought of. Or, a typical one is to say, something like, a pen, let's say, just say a pentagram. Oh, and you put a pentagram on your profile, meaning the four elements and ether, and it's a symbol of, life to you. And somebody else comes along and says, "Oh, this is a symbol of black magic," and then they show, some medieval grimoire that you've never seen, and say this is what they're into, and they might even know that it's not what you're into, or most likely do know, right? But they're trying to associate you with something else to attack you, even though that's not what you're about, and that's not what you meant, and it's not what it signified at all. And obviously, you can do this with almost any, or probably anything.
Yes, even with the Chaos Star, someone just posted some misinformation completely wrong. They
Yes.
took out of nowhere.
Yes, yes, that's right. That's right. And they were saying it's a symbol of could we even say the word of extreme right wing, whatever it was. Yeah, and and well, this is the thing. Of course, symbols themselves can be appropriated or misappropriated or used by different groups. And so yeah, so a symbol of good fortune in India might be a symbol of, something totally different in 1940 Germany, for example. Yeah, that's true. Even though, and I know people are going to say, "Oh, but this faces different directions," so it's not. No, it does not. It faces in both directions, and so that doesn't count. And that whole interpretation is from Jung, who got it completely wrong. But all symbols can be appropriated and have different meanings. And, people, unfortunately, even in the occult world, think that, well, this, you see it often, right? Oh, this is this symbol means such and such. And it's like, yeah, sure it does. In which tradition are you talking about? Because in other traditions, it means something totally different. So it's not like a symbol is, in the ether, and then we've plucked it out and it only has that one meaning. I mean, obviously, it is the case that you're not going to represent, say, the four elements by a three-sided shape, the triangle. That is true. But beyond that, the symbols have different meanings at different times. The pentagram again, or people will say, "Oh, it's satanic," or it's a Wiccan symbol. It's a symbol of the five elements. Sure, but if you go back to medieval England and read the Middle English, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, in there it talks about the pentagram. It says it's a symbol of the five wounds of Christ. It's a symbol of the Virgin Mary. It's a symbol of the five digits of the hand. It doesn't say anything about witchcraft in there. Go back to ancient Greek, and at least is supposedly a symbol of health. So symbols have different meanings at different times, and you have to look at them in the context, right? So yeah, sure, you can have a symbol of some extremist politics in, say, 1940s Germany, and have the same symbol on a Hindu temple in India, and they have totally different meanings. But someone who's disingenuous could take a Hindu temple and say, "See, they're all into this nasty business," right? So people deliberately misinterpret things to make themselves seem smarter, because they know that it's the blind leading the blinder. There are people that are even less informed, and then all over the world, they've got billions of people that will potentially follow them just because they're misinterpreting things. And these people are
This
completely disingenuous, and we should ignore them because they're completely reprehensible.
ideological differences is one of the main reasons for political spiritual warfare. And sometimes they just need a little reason to justify the extreme hate they feel. And you mentioned this point of the symbols, and it's the main reason why I don't have any tattoos. None whatsoever. I'm a blank state. In Brazil, for instance, there was a man who tattooed his Afro-Brazilian religious symbols. He went to the hospital, anesthesia. Next day, he woke up and the tattoos were gone because someone, a doctor or someone, decided that it was evil. Also, because you have, different drug lords and different symbols, and you don't want to be seen from one or another, certain tattoos can be used as quote unquote, oh, proof that you belong to a certain gang or whatever. In reality,
Yeah.
you don't.
Yeah.
It was never the case, but now it got misinterpreted and used against you. Another reason why is one of my courses, the particular course about death, I explained that tattoos are portals and passports, precisely to represent certain tribes. So one must be very careful with tattoos and their symbols to
Yes.
understand it precisely what you're doing with your body.
Yes. Well, this may be going off at a tangent, but since we've mentioned the misinterpretation of symbols, a lot of people will get Chinese symbols, Chinese calligraphy on their arm. And, I used to spend a lot of time with a Chinese woman, and whenever she saw someone with a Chinese calligraphy on their arm, she would say, "Oh, that means," and it was always something terrible. They think that means love, but it actually means something far worse that you wouldn't really want on you
It
if
means
you went to
fish.
China.
You tattooed fish.
Yeah, it usually means something wrong worse than that. But yeah, so but it looks cool. And now people in China are getting English words tattooed on them as
I've
well. And they're
seen
usually
it. I've
yeah,
seen
like fruit or something. Again, something not it's not wise.
And why they target you? Sometimes it's your smile, sometimes it's your light, sometimes it's because you're hardworking, sometimes it's because you're beautiful or handsome, sometimes it's because they feel you took something from them, let's say a partner, a business deal, an opportunity. Sometimes it's because of something you said, sometimes it's because they were not feeling well. Sometimes it's pure projection. Whatever it is, one tip for you is never try to find the reason. They don't need a reason to hate you. You don't need to waste your time trying to understand why people are mean, evil to you. It's because they thought you were weak. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, well, so from what you're saying, I think you're right. The reason when you get to the bottom of things, it's usually envy. But when you start asking yourself, "Oh, what did I do? What did I do to them? What did I do to deserve it? What's wrong with me?" You're already weakening yourself. That's actually what they want you to do. They want you to second guess yourself and feel that you are to blame for them attacking you. And when I grew up in England, you get these uh, you know, guys who are sort of, um, wanted to start a fight with someone. They wanted to beat someone up, and they would always begin by saying something like, "What are you looking at?" And then of course, the victim or the potential victim would say, "Oh no, nothing." And then they would say, "Oh, you're ignoring me, or you're saying I'm nothing." Right? Why don't they just beat the person up? That's what they want to do. Why all this back and forth, right? Because they usually pick on someone who's much weaker. So it's not like they're even testing that person. It's because at the end of the day, they want to go to the pub and they want to say, "Oh, this guy said this to me, or this guy ignored me, so I beat him up." They still have to be the hero in their own mind. They want you to be the villain. So if you're second guessing yourself, what did I do? What did I do to deserve this? Why did he pick on me? Is it something about me? That's exactly what they want. That's what the criminal or the bully or the attacker wants. They want you to feel that you are to blame in some way. So you must never play this game, or you're just falling into the trap that they try and set in different ways.
Perfection. And that's when it comes the mental mastery. So let's now talk about the traits of the occult warrior. So yeah, you have the signs, you know what's going on. You have been a target of an attack. So it could be, gang stalking. Yes, this happened. A couple of people or a group of people start stalking you, start trying to bully you, to weaken your mind. Uh, I want you to understand that if it's not a physical attack, so they don't actually have a knife against you or a weapon against you, if it's not physical, if it is mental, if it's online, if it's spiritual, um, you have all the power. So what they're trying to do, as Angel is saying, is they're trying to find breaches. Doors and windows that they can enter so they can make you feel lesser than you are, as you were saying. That's why the mental mastery, you understanding who you are, is the core of your battle, because you always want to go back to this. Know who you are and do not allow them to tell you otherwise.
Yeah, that's right. You definitely have to know who you are. You definitely can't be playing this game of second guessing yourself and what did I do and how is it my fault? Because that is what they want. That gives them an opening to attack you even more. You may have noticed that when people apologize online for something they may have done or maybe didn't do, that then the attacks increase because now people say, "Oh, look, that person's weak." So I'm going to attack them because then everyone who's even weaker now is being given an opening to attack that person. But the other thing I think it really is to not, to recognize that, we think of all people as basically normal, but when people act in a way that's basically abnormal and they're attacking you for no good reason, that, a normal person wouldn't do that is to realize that they're probably, abnormal. Their brain chemistry is probably a bit different to the rest of us. And, there's no point in you, in fact, there's no good will come of you second guessing yourself. So, it happens with all of these people who behave like this, when women are attacked, the attacker blames the woman. So, even though she or girl, whatever it is, these people are, have a different brains to normal people very often, or or different brain chemistry or whatever it may be. But and by even though you might be a nice person and feel that, well, I need to look into myself, that's actually the wrong thing to do. We don't want evil to flourish, and you bowing down and apologizing and thinking you're to blame when you're obviously not. All you're actually doing is allowing evil to flourish in the world. You wouldn't allow it if it was someone else. And you, by being this sort of holy cosmic victim, are not being a holy cosmic victim. You're just allowing evil. That's it. So I know we've been told it's great to be a victim in this world, but it's not.
I absolutely agree. Sometimes we get what we allow. Sometimes our karma is just a result of how we feel about ourselves. So if we let our partners to take advantage of us, it's because at some point we allow that to happen. And that's why we need to have emotional equilibrium to know when this is the result of paranoia, when you are, trying so much to be the victorious, sometimes the best course of action is to pretend they won. Sometimes I don't care if you think you won. I don't care if you think you are better than me. I have nothing to prove to you. So having this emotional equilibrium, knowing yourself, being true, being whole is the main uh, way of victory. Not allowing them also to tempt you, right? Because sometimes, in order to weaken you, they try to tempt you and to pursue you to behave in another way that you normally wouldn't, and that
Yeah.
weakens your mind.
Well, especially in public, the first thing someone's going to try and do is to make you angry, right? Because then you're more likely to say something that is offensive or that other people will find objectionable, and then they can turn around, rather like the bully who, picks on somebody 10 times weaker than them and says, "What are you looking at?" Then they can turn around and say, "Oh, look what that person said to me." Right. And then maybe they delete all of what they said to get you to say it, or they'll screenshot just what you said, not all of the horrible things they said to you, and then proof that you're this monster and they're the victim. So they flip it around. But yeah, so just playing off of what you said, spiritual people, whether in the occult or in religion or whatever, some religions, not others, but more New Age religions, particularly more Western religions, are in some sense primed to be victims, and leave aside the sort of post-Christian love of the being the cosmic victim. But I personally can't stand it, but I meet quite a few people who say things like, "Well, we're all one, and I am you, and you are me," and if you think there's any separation between any of us, that's an illusion, and what we're aiming at, which apparently they've achieved, is the recognition that we are all one. I'm every single human being in the world, and well, there's no human beings because they're all one human being or one thing. But I'll just ask yourself, what is the first thing those people will do when they go home at night? The first thing they do is close the door and then lock it. Or who are they locking out? They tell us in public, "Oh, we're all one, and if you can't accept we're all one, that's an illusion." But they behave as if they don't believe that, or they behave as if they think the same as everybody else, that you are you and they are them and I am me. So, the thing that we need to recognize, I think, more than anything is when a worldview or a philosophy or an ideology can only be represented by hypocrites, it's not a worldview or a philosophy or an ideology, it's a weapon. And it's a weapon that's softening you up. Because, then you feel guilty, right? You feel guilty that, ooh, I do feel I'm me and I'm not the homeless person, or I'm not the person starving in Africa or whatever it might be, and I feel terrible, and you feel guilty about that. But yeah, you're not those people. You're not the murderer. You're not the pervert. You're not all of these other people. You're you, and you're only responsible for you. And because what is the end goal of this? If there is an end goal, it's usually to extract something from you. And if it's not money or sexual pleasure, it's probably status that they want you to look up to them. But look up to them for what? Because they're just manipulating you. They don't believe it. They don't live like it. They are hypocrites. No matter how nice they might be or how nice they might appear.
This is a spiritual slavery. We're definitely connected to each other. We live in societies. We're definitely under the same ecosystem, and whatever we do here in Australia affects somehow North America, and so it goes. But I agree with you. We're not the same. And if you we're not the one, we're not one. Because if you claim that, you're also getting interjected to yourself all the sins of humanity.
Right. Which is part of that. Well,
And
and the
no, I
idea
don't
is
want it.
Well, I mean, I think the idea is, apart from the other person says something so ludicrous that they seem enlightened, and you can never possibly reach this enlightenment state where you truly believe that you are every single person, and there's no such thing as people because you're all one anyway. Because logic and what life experience tells us that we're not. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what someone in China is thinking right now. There is a separation between us. That's just completely obvious from any lived experience. But the other thing I think is just sort of softening us up to be, I don't know, to be manipulatable and to be malleable and to, feel guilty because it is so,
To
you
accept
cannot
karma,
do it.
basically.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's to accept karma. I think
And
it's to
in
accept.
Kardecism, it is.
Okay.
They everything they trying to do is to make you accept the destiny. Oh, if you have a disease, oh, it's karma because you were bad, whatever it is. So I do not accept that. I do not accept that mindset at all. It's not part of my
Yeah, of
reality.
course. Well, that's also in New Thought and the positive thinking world as well. That ultimately they think, apart from Mitch Horowitz, who doesn't think this, but they think that, well, if terrible things happen to you, it's because you weren't thinking positively enough. You thought the wrong thoughts. That these bad things happen to you, which is just a way of victim blaming, really, and of justifying. Well, they were born into, wealth or whatever have you, or married the right person and they had an easy life, but it was because of their brilliant mind, and then somebody who's lived a terrible life because of, disease or whatever it may be, that somehow this is because their mind was dysfunctional, they thought the wrong thoughts, which is, again, it's a sort of beautiful weapon to use against people.
Very true. And how do you deal with that? By having flexibility. So, one thing that helped me tremendously when I was, suffering with this wars is shifting paradigms. And that's why I love Chaos Magic, because the amount of weapons, the amount of triggers uh, are basically infinite, right? And you can also make your own weapons, make your own astral team and all of that. So Chaos Magic allows you, if you have a strong core, that's important to say. If you know who you are, it allows you to navigate your enemy's belief system and to use that same belief system against themselves. So I absolutely love to get their symbol and work with that symbol against them, because basically what you're doing is whatever it is they thought was protecting them, if the enemy is working with the very thing that should protect you, they feel completely abandoned, right? So if my enemy, for instance, works with voodoo, I work with voodoo. If my enemy works with certain deities, I work with certain deities. I post photos with their statues and all of that to show that, first, I'm not afraid of any entity or weapon or tool or symbol. And second is to show that I conquer those symbols and I make them work for me and not against me.
On a much more mundane level, speaking of paradigm shifting, I might have mentioned it before, but in, martial arts and self-defense classes, sometimes, the instructor will say to you, just go to a cafe or a shopping mall and sit there and then just look at everyone who goes past and ask yourself, if you were a criminal, which people would you attack? And that's a very unpleasant thing for some people, but criminals see, and people who are prone to attacking other people see the world in a totally different way, and they do look at it that who is going to be the best victim for them. And and to put yourself in that mindset, even for a short period, is illuminating because first of all, you see, how many potential victims there are out there, people not paying attention, people who are a bit naive and think they'll never be attacked, people who are, have something expensive on them or, dressed in a way that would attract an attacker, you know, uh, you know, then you can start to avoid these things. Or, if you're wearing an expensive clothes, just take an Uber instead of a subway or whatever it is, and start to make plans that will make you less likely to be targeted by an attacker, but a lot of it is to do with posture as well. But then you can also translate that to online as well. What is liable to make you attacked online as well? Obviously, if you put yourself in any kind of, you know, uh, you become a public person to any sort of degree, you will be attacked. But, are you prepared to defend yourself if you're attacked in that way? Does it matter to you that people are going to misrepresent you, so you can kind of get into the attacker's mindset? Because these people are not noble warriors of morality. They're usually psychopaths who are self-serving. So you want to be able to put yourself into the mindset of the attacker. What if you were an attacker? What would draw you to attack someone, for prestige or whatever it is?
Yes, and that's when you should have your safety protocol, as we said in our last video, so please check that out. And also a ritualistic discipline. You must have more discipline, more resilience, more passion for your self-defense than the attacker has to destroy you. And also you have to have a goal. So what is your goal? What it is that you want to take out of the situation? For me, for instance, it was always to transmute whatever problem I have into money. So for me, is financial. For instance, they started saying, "Oh, you are the vampire of chaos. You are this and that." And there was this occultist Telemite who started his own war against me in his mind, whatever. So he wrote diaries and diaries against me, and he posted within his group his attacks. And for some reason, he would take the oracle, and the oracles would say it failed. So it was the most pathetic, ridiculous thing. But what did I do? I read the entire diary. I wasn't afraid of anything at all. And he would claim that I would drain him or whatever. And I didn't even try. So what did I do? I created a t-shirt saying Chaos Vampire. And so this t-shirt. And then I created later a fan fiction book about this whole situation with another group, and sold the book. So every time something happens, I try to see as, okay, where I can take money out of this situation? How can I transmute? And there are certain subliminals I truly recommend of transmutation. And one that is called something like, they talk about you and you make money. So the more people gossip about you, the more people are obsessed about you, the more people throw energy, evil eye, whatever it is. Take this, all this energy, filter the energy, transmute the energy, and make some money. Make your bank grow. The bank must grow. And also, aside from the financial, what I call spiritual tax that you can get out of these very unpleasant situations, also the spiritual knowledge that you take from others' obsession, because you learn a lot about your boundaries, about your limits, um, about yourself. So again, see these negative trend, whatever it is they're throwing at you. For instance, if someone keeps playing the same song, which is very heavy, with hypnotic sounds, with subliminal message of hate or whatever it is, you can transmute this repetition into a white noise and focus for you to finish your goals, your studies, your whatever it is. Because sometimes you can't negotiate with people, but you can take out of them what you need. So you can make them pay in one way or another.
Yeah, yeah, well, just a couple of things as we near the end, probably. And that's, I think, you have to know who you are and be okay with it. And if you're living a life that's hypocritical and you're saying one thing in public and doing another in private, then that's going to be embarrassing. But if you live your will the way you really want to live, then it doesn't really matter if someone attacks you for it. You will understand it's just envy. But you don't want to live a life where someone finds out something about you that's sort of hypocritical and then embarrasses you. So, you want to, and that means developing yourself to the best of your ability and not giving in to all kinds of weaknesses or temptations that most or all people have. But I think it also does mean rejecting these philosophies where we're all one and I'm you and you're me, because that sort of dissolves the barrier between us. You want to develop yourself. You don't want to think that you're everyone else when you're certainly not. But there are I would say lived in a few countries as you have, and one thing you see a lot to be wary of is very cheap tarot readers on the street or that have offices that are very expensive offices and they're offering very, very cheap tarot readings. From what I have heard from other people, they might tell you that you're cursed and that you just need to bring some money along to burn, let's say $1,000, and when you're not cursed. So you shouldn't be paranoid about these things. Either rush out to, get confirmation from someone that may or may not be questionable.
That was all for today. We hope you liked it. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment.